Youngest state party chair in the country. Before I bring her on, it's Anderson Clayton. She's the leader of the North Carolina Democrats. We do want to put out, because we are a place that offers time to both sides, and we did speak to the Republican side earlier this week on a number of issues, including the president's lawsuit against North Carolina voter registration that's ongoing right now, and the entire ordeal about Allison Riggs, Jefferson Griffin. That entire situation really had to deal with the Trump lawsuit that we're seeing against this North Carolina voter registration. So this is why we wanted to bring in Chair Clayton at this time. Great to meet you, Miss Anderson Clayton. Thank you so much for your time. Obviously, you're making history yourself, being the youngest state party chair in the country. So I'll just get into the nitty gritty of it, and we'll kind of talk about that lawsuit. And for those folks that are listening, this kind of mirrors an issue that the Republican Appeals Court Judge Jefferson Griffin raised, trying to overturn Democratic Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs' election victory, throwing those votes. We had extensive reporting on that. Obviously, it was a months-long thing. So I'll open it up to you, starting there. What does this mean going forward for us? And really, as we're looking towards midterms for 2026, what type of impact could this lawsuit have? Obviously, the litigation is going to work itself out in court. But just give me your thoughts, if you would.
I mean, I think this is just another attack on Republicans to subvert democracy. And now we're seeing it from the Trump administration. And we have to say that the Jefferson Griffin playbook that they ran came straight out of the 2020 Trump playbook. Clayton Mitchell runs the Election Integrity Network. Her backyard is in Moore County, North Carolina right now. And we understand that the folks that are trying to help deny elections nationally feel like that they can come into a state and be able to utilize this as a petri dish situation to be able to take to other states. And we understand that the aspect of protecting every single voter, because none of these voters did anything wrong that Trump is suing against right now, and that the DOJ is coming down with a law. Hot voters is a federal protection. It's a federal law that grants protections to voters that got registered to vote before 2002, when the Help Americans Vote Act originally was passed. And we need everyone to understand that voters have done nothing wrong, and that they do not have to have or not need to go back and re-register to vote right now. This is a way for Republicans to help purge the voter rolls in North Carolina, and it's egregious.
Especially, like I said, as we look ahead towards midterms in 2026. This was filed in federal court on Tuesday. So what does the preparation look like from the Democratic side or the North Carolina side, right, to defend itself in this lawsuit? And this is specific to the lack of driver's license numbers, as you spoke to, partial Social Security numbers. And those are the things that have been said by the Trump administration. So can you clarify, if you can, where do we go from here? And then what should folks really be looking out for if a judge does rule that this is something they want to go with?
Look, everyone should go in North Carolina, if you're a registered voter right now, to the griffinlist.com. It is the website that we pulled together, that a great group called Triangle Blog out of Orange County pulled together to be able to help folks understand who actually is being challenged by Jefferson Griffin, or who was being challenged by Jefferson Griffin, because all of those folks can go in. You can search by your county. You can be able to understand if you're on the list or you know someone that is, because we do understand that we don't have friendly courts right now. And we know that North Carolina needs to be able to defend itself in 2026 from these type of attacks. And so we are encouraging people who maybe know a cousin, a friend, a relative, someone in your book club that may be on the list, but anywhere that you can go and check whether or not Republicans have challenged your vote, because you're their number one target coming in 2026. And we're prepared to litigate this as long as we possibly can in federal court. But we also know right now that we just had a 6-month court battle where Republican state courts were able to help Jefferson Griffin try to subvert this election. And just so everyone understands the type of voters that Trump is talking about. After 9/11 happened in 2002, they passed the Help Americans Vote Act to try to make sure that folks had a driver's license number or a social security number attached to your voter registration form. It was about election security and election integrity, right? But that doesn't mean that we negate the fact that in that federal law that passed, they grandfathered in people that have been voting in their communities for decades, because it is confusing when people have to go back and change their voter registration form after they've already registered to vote, when they did nothing wrong under the current law at that point in time. And so I need everyone to understand, we fully are prepared on the side of organizing to be able to fight this if we need to. But I also think that we need to understand that voters have done nothing wrong, and this lawsuit is bogus, to be quite frank.
Total sense. That makes total sense because we have been speaking, or we did speak to people frustrated that their vote was one that could not or may not be counted, that they did everything correct. And that was one of the biggest complaints that we heard. So I can speak to that certain folks personally did have that fear. And you set me up perfectly for what I was going to ask next, Chair Clayton. How did the Democrats in North Carolina prepare for the midterms? There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of things happening, obviously, at the federal government level. There's been great leadership, I think, by the local state government. Obviously, Governor Stein is on it, and a number of other leaders across North Carolina. They're watching what is happening at the White House. So how do you guys prepare here in North Carolina for what is going to be probably a pretty tough battle come the midterms in 26?
We lock in on local races and we make sure we've got a Democrat in every single county in North Carolina that can talk about the fact that we're going to have the most important Senate race in the entire country in 2026. And that also we've got to get Justice Earls reelected to the bench in 2026 as well for the fate of our state to be able to actually have a balance of power in it again. And honestly, that looks like what we're going to be doing starting on Sunday. We're going around and we're doing a rural tour throughout 50 counties in North Carolina. I'm bringing Justice Earls out with me. We've got Congressman Don Davis that's going to be in Edgecombe in Rocky Mount with us on Sunday. So feel free to go to the ncdp.org website and help make sure that you are there if you're in Edgecombe or Nash or any of the surrounding counties and you want to come hear from your local representatives and your members of Congress. But it also means looking at places like Matthews and Huntersville. I mean, Democrats in 2023 were able to flip the Huntersville City Council, quite frankly, from red to blue. And we did that from getting on the ground and talking to people about what the City Council was able to accomplish. And I think that is going to be the most important thing for us is to build back power at the local level everywhere across the state. And we did a lot of that in 2023. But we have a lot of staff right now on the ground that are able to help us do that in an even greater way in 2025. And that's going to set us up for real success in 2026 and beyond, because we're going to build the bench of local leaders of Democrats that can speak to issues and communities across the state.
I've got to talk about that beyond real quick because, Chair Clayton, the 2026 midterms, as you just alluded to, are fast approaching. There's this new round of redistricting, though, just a few years away after the 2030 census, right? And then North Carolina Democrats, they are set, it seems like, to receive some real big support funding from the National Democratic Party to try and boost, right, the on-the-ground, boots-on-the-ground type of efforts. So is that something that is going to be, I guess, a mainstay in politics nowadays? I mean, obviously, the national platforms have always been a support system, but it seems like in the last couple of years, it is critical to get those national groups behind you guys. And especially, like, as I said, redistricting has been an issue. I mean, I was in Ohio 2 years ago, and they were doing the exact same thing, that entire process when Governor DeWine was there. So this is something that's not going away. Every state is seemingly going to deal with something like this. So how do you circumvent that? How do you guys, what does that look like for the foreseeable future?
You build the infrastructure that it takes to win those races. And we have a plan in North Carolina. We had one when we started in 2023 when I first got elected. It was taking back and making sure that we held a Supreme Court seat for the Democrats in 2024, which we did by 734 votes. And if people don't believe that every single door knock that you made or phone call that you made last election cycle mattered, every person that you talked to in the grocery store line about whether or not you knew about the courts, it did. And it did because of that. It also did because of people like Senator Woodson Bradley out of Mecklenburg County that won her race by about a 200 vote margin. It mattered for the people across this state, the work that we did. But that was 2024. 2026 for us looks like holding another Supreme Court seat. We knew that the pathway back to our courts was in 2028 when we have 3 Republican seats that are up. And then we were able to reverse partisan and racial gerrymandering, giving the pathway back to the Democratic Party to be able to maintain not only just state power, but federal power. The National Party and National Democrats ignore us at their own risk and at their own detriment. And we need folks to prioritize the South right now more than ever, because we understand that our party's base is here right now. And North Carolina also is the only state that's going to have 2 Senate flips from red to blue, honestly, in 2026 and in 2028. The power to me for our party nationally lies right here in North Carolina. And it's my job to go out there and convince everybody of that.
Last thing I gotta ask you here is about Allison Riggs, right? Not necessarily what this means for the court, because I think we understand, but people are asking for more parity on the court, kind of like an even split, right? Which is something we're not seeing at this point. How do we get to that? And does this appointment having Miss Riggs back there. Does this get us closer to having that parity in some respects? Because obviously this has been a discussion, not just here, but I think across the nation as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. What I hear from even unaffiliateds and Republicans alike is they're saying we want to get back to a place where people can actually talk to each other again. And I think that means that you have a balance of power. And right now, Republicans have majority control of our state. They've got a supermajority in our state Senate. They have a majority in our state House. They have control of our courts. They have control of the Council of State. And they've also been able to strip away power from our governor and our attorney general last December before we broke the supermajority and were able to take away that power from them. I mean, Republicans in the state that we're in right now, if folks do not think that your life is getting any better, I'm like, we only have one political party to blame for that. And that is because we do not have enough balance right now in the state of North Carolina. And we need to give Democrats a fair fighting chance because it is going to make our politics better across this state when we do.
Well, I can tell you, seeing you speak with passion and seeing some of our young individuals and leaders across the state, Republican, Democrat, no matter what, it seems like you guys are involved and engaged, and that's great for our democracy here in the United States. So I am enthused by that. We appreciate your time. The leader of the North Carolina Democrats, the youngest state party chair in the country. Congratulations and appreciate your time. This is Miss Anderson Clayton. Have a great night. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right.